somewhat rant about some future works I plan. I will say I don't fully know how much of this will come to fruition. Of course, a lot of it will be based on feedback. A lot of it will be based on how interested people are. Of course, if there's not a lot of interest, then I have other stuff I can work on. But if there is interest, I'd definitely be willing to put more time into it. But one thing to note is that Monocle is in a beta right now, and definitely want to experiment with lots of changes to it. So as a consequence of that, if you have something that's currently working in V0.1 right now, more likely than not in V0.2, it's possible there's going to be something that breaks, right? I think that's just something I really am passionate about. I think rewriting a lot of things, I think also just completely overhauling, that's really necessary for development. So does suck, at least for now, that there's not going to be a lot of stability, but at the end of the day, you can just keep the V0.1 version if that's an issue for you. Okay. Well, kind of touched on this on the last video, but a lot of the animation system has changed from how I initially envisioned it. Not only animation, but just a lot of the editor as well has changed from how I initially envisioned it. And I think that I got at the end of the day, I got rid of most of that stuff. But just because it changed so much, I know for sure if I was to rewrite everything right now, I could make stuff a lot faster. Just a ton of optimizations. Yeah, I'm pretty confident. At least in order of magnitude, more likely 2 orders of magnitude speed up. Okay. The UI also, yeah, I definitely know the UI could be better. But the thing that I was mainly targeting for the beta release was that functor auto completion. That's what I wanted for a beta release. That's what I know I needed to get. So once I got that working, I didn't really care too much. It's also, again, very slow. The real main reason why it's very slow is that every single character change, it's basically doing an entire refresh. So I think at some point I'm gonna have to change it so that this is done lazily, and more often than that, I don't need to update the entire. Yeah, sorry, I'm just kind of ranted, but there's lots of improvements I can make on the UI, especially on the Windows side. I'm probably gonna do that. So I think probably one of the first updates I'm gonna do, again, not super sure, but if I do an update, the first one I'm probably gonna do is related to completely overhauling the UI and a little bit of the compiler infrastructure, so that that's gonna be a lot faster. And as a consequence of that, maybe we'll get syntax highlighting and auto completion. I don't really have a timeline for that, but maybe 6 months from now. I'm not really sure. It is a good amount of work. Okay, in the short term, my priority is mainly security and bug fixes and making errors less confusing. I think the main way that errors are confusing right now is that a lot of the issues are just double could not be casted to vector, but it doesn't really tell you which variable name, so I'll try to fix that. The other thing is UI related, where if you have an error, it won't exactly tell you the full call stack, so you kind of have to guess. I'll have to see if there's an easy way I can change that without having to change too much of the backend. Okay. In terms of the actual positioning, or in terms of the actual language, there's some stuff that I do not like. So number one, I really am unhappy with how text turned out. It's just far too verbose. Pins, they can do everything I wanted them to do, so that's nice. But it just far too much verbose. That if you actually in practice, it just ends up being too much typing, hard to read. Okay, I have a few ideas under consideration for how to solve this, but I can think of drawbacks to them too. So it might just be something that, yeah, I'll have to see. I don't really have good ideas right now, but definitely feel free to contact me if you have any ways that you think you can improve Monochrome. I don't like positioning as well, but I know for positioning in color, I definitely know a way I can fix that. It's just gonna be a good bit implementation heavy. Essentially, the idea is monads. So with functors, I'll not go into it too much, but the idea is that with functors, we're kind of wrapping the entire thing such that the interior value has no way of escaping. But what if there was a way, a really good example is embed in space, or if there was a way I I can transparently put a functor on top, transparently wrap a value such that you can't even tell that it's being wrapped. Um, embed in space is a really good example where we want to apply an operation where basically if I have some sort of graph, let's just say I'll write somewhat pseudocode right now. I have some sort of graph, and then more often than not, I will have to embed it in the space. Okay, so we have to do some sort of embed. But now if I want to change f.start to be something, that can't really work because we have this embed in space that's basically blocking us access. But maybe, or not even maybe, in the future, I know that I can make it so that we'll have some sort of monadic syntax where this embed will transparently wrap f such that we can refer to start, and then I'll change start, and then we get back the embed again. So from a math perspective, this is somewhat conjugation, where we'll basically, you can think about it as we'll apply the inverse of embed, and then we'll change start, and then we'll apply embed again. Yeah, maybe that's a bit technical, but that's really what I want to do, and it'll help avoid a lot of boilerplate. It'll solve the positioning issues, it'll solve the color issues, so that's really great. The text issues, it doesn't really touch on, but I know for sure a lot of these issues can be solved. So I think after that, the only real gripe I have is going to be with text. Okay, related is possibly functions and functors should be separated. I'm still not super sure how I feel about this, but essentially the idea is that some functors do too many things. They have nice syntax, they have long syntax, they have this embed, this remembrance property. They're the only ones that can be called with functions, so they do too many things at once, which is pretty bad. Usually when we have a construct, we want it to only do one thing at once, and because they do too many things at once, that leads to confusion. I don't think it's too big of an issue. It's more of a theoretical one than a practical one, but maybe I'll separate that in the future. Okay, and then possibly I might want to move to a brace-based syntax rather than line-based. This is more so because it would be a lot easier on the compiler, and it would allow us to do some things that currently are a bit hard. I'll have to see, but I think that would probably be an improvement. Not super sure. Yeah, in the long term, I do have some ideas, but I really can't guarantee anything. All right, final topic is going to be some advanced stuff, just more theoretical stuff about Monocrawl.